they put their horses at the rear. They do this kind of
Yes,
symbolic act of we're not running
yes,
away. And Warwick is actually killed trying to get to his horse
yeah.
because he's had cause to regret this decision.
Hello and welcome to episode 4 of this 6-part special on the Wars of the Roses. Today's episode sees Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, the Kingmaker, make plans which soon fall apart. Joining me are two historians, Derek Birks, the author of The Guide to the Wars of the Roses, and David Pilling, author of The Kingbreaker. After today, there are 2 episodes to go, so hopefully you will emerge from August with a superior knowledge of a conflict that was an early civil war and which formed England for the next few hundred years. All the great characters are here: Elizabeth Woodville, Henry VI, Queen Margaret, Warwick the Kingmaker, Edward IV, Richard III, and finally Henry Tudor. Please do share and like and subscribe, but in the meantime, it's the Wars of the Roses Part 4, The Fall of the Kingmaker. Okay, so what then causes Edward to, because we get a resumption of hostilities again, don't we? We're talking the Battle of
Losecoat Field now, isn't it? Are we coming up to?
Oh, Barn. I'm getting a bit too ahead of
Yeah,
myself.
Barnet's in the future.
Yeah,
Okay.
we get this weird non-battle, really. Well, I think Warwick and Clarence try and do the same trick as they did at Edgecote,
Yeah.
where they got a proxy to fight for them. So at Edgecote, they had Robin of Reedsdale, who's probably one of Warwick's agents or his tenants. And then they do a similar thing in Lincolnshire, I think. They get Sir Robert Wells, is his name, a Lincolnshire knight, and his father to revolt against Edward. But really, Clarence and Warwick are pulling the strings. And they're trying to repeat what they did at Edgecote. They won't confront Edward directly. They get someone else to do it. But Losecoat Field is really this pathetic non-battle where the rebels run away after like a single round of gunfire. And so that's a disaster. And I think Warwick and Clarence are forced to run away to Calais again.
Yeah, what's interesting is, I mean, Warwick, as I said, he's quite a plotter. When it comes to thinking what he might do, he's quite good. And so he's quite organized. He knows what he wants to do. He wants to have this, as you say, this stooge in Lincolnshire, set the whole thing rolling. There will be a need for armies to be mustered. He will raise an army. Clarence will raise an army. The king will raise an army. Clarence and Warwick will maintain, as they do, that they're loyal to Edward and they're coming to help him. Meanwhile, they're trying to join up at Leicester with other allies they're hoping to win over. And again, he's hoping that rebellions in the north will stop those who are loyal to Edward in the north coming down to help. So he's trying to cover all the bases. It's a brilliant plan. Unfortunately, it doesn't work.
Is this fresh revolt in the north? Is this led by another man named Robin of Holderness? Or was he someone
no, I think
else?
Robin of Holderness was in it was in 1469. It was earlier.
Oh, right. Okay.
And
I
it
get
appears
confused
to
with
have
these
been to
revolts.
do with the Percy family, but
Okay.
the sources for the revolts of 1469 are labyrinthine and also about 10 words long. So who knows, basically.
Who knows? Right.
No, in 1470, Warwick had it all planned and almost nothing went to plan. The armies didn't meet at Leicester. I mean, Sir Robert Wells, for example, he wasn't supposed to be facing Edward because clearly Warwick knew that'd be suicide. He was supposed to be bringing his army to Leicester. So everything went wrong, basically. And in the end, Warwick was trying to sort of last chance saloon. He went to his brother John Neville, you know, fancy joining us in a rebellion. He went to Lord Thomas Stanley in the north as well, fancy joining us. Basically, everyone shut their doors, and he was forced to flee rather ignominiously. He went all the way down to the southwest, and they disappeared in a few ships from Dartmouth. Now, you mentioned Calais. That's where he was intending to go, but
Oh,
Edward had
right.
already told his deputy in Calais not to let them in. I mean, to be honest with you, it's a very tragic story because Isabel Neville, or Isabel Plantagenet, I suppose she was by then, was heavily pregnant during this journey across the Channel. And they were waiting to go into Calais, denied entry, fired at, and so on. And she miscarried during that episode. So it
Well,
was from a family point of view, from a human point of view, it was
yeah.
a very tragic episode. But it shows how isolated Warwick was at that point. And by then, Warwick was a done deal. He was finished in theory. Um, so yeah, strike one for Edward.
So is that's where is it last throw of the dice? Because he joins by doing this, he's effectively on the Lancastrian side.
Well, he's got nowhere else to go except to try and persuade Margaret, who's now at Angers in France with her son.
Yeah.
They've been in exile there since Towton, I think. Um, so he's got to throw in his lot with them because there's no one else. And even then, I think there's this wonderful story that Margaret makes him kneel for about 2 hours and then leaves him on his knees and comes back and says, "Oh, still kneeling." She
I don't know.
really,
I'm not sure it's as long as 2 hours, but she certainly makes him kneel.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think this would have happened without the French king, to be honest. He's the
Mm,
broker here, Louis the XI, known sometimes, I think, as the Universal Spider, because he's a plotter, he's a machinations in the background, and he sees a way of having a more friendly England opposite his coast. Um, and he reckons, right, this is a really good idea. We put these two together, Warwick and Margaret, which is, not a very good idea in general because they hate each other. I mean, of all the people involved in the previous years, the two people that regard each other with the greatest hostility are the Earl of Warwick and Queen Margaret. They are really not great bedfellows. And I think it's only because Louis says, well, look, I'll give you some men, I'll give you some money,
mm.
make it happen, sort of thing. And it does happen. And Louis also suggests that Warwick's other daughter, Anne Neville, is married to the Prince of Wales, Prince Edward, Margaret's son. Um, People tend to take this at face value a lot, whereas in actual fact, Margaret was dead against it. She was marrying the heir to the throne in her eyes to a noble family. When he becomes king, she wants him married to one of the heads of Europe's royal families, not some baron, some nobleman. So she wasn't happy about the whole thing. But as you said, last chance saloon for either of them. There's no way back but this, and that's
Mm.
more or less how it plays out.
If you're the king of France, this is all wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Says this is great, and then I'll just keep when it looks like one side is winning, I'll just leverage the other, so to keep the fight going, and so
Yeah,
basically keep the English slaughtering each other. So they don't look at France.
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
So okay, they have is Barnet the next big event then?
Uh, Not quite.
It's the
I don't
next
think.
battle, but it's
Yeah, it's the not.
it,
It's the next battle, but it's not. I mean, obviously Edward's still king at the moment,
Yeah,
and
but the
uh,
French have provided the Lancastrians with plenty of cash and an army.
yeah, I mean Warwick lands, I think, in the southwest, if I remember rightly, and he's come to put Henry VI back on the throne. I mean, he can't say anything else because that's what he's agreed with Margaret. So he's now picking at that groundswell of traditional loyalty for the anointed king that we mentioned before, and it always amazes me, but it must have worked because a lot of people joined his banner,
mm,
and he raised a lot of men in the southwest. He then went north, and every time Edward was actually in the north. Now, guess why Edward was in the north? Because Warwick had arranged for there to be some rebellions in the north to distract Edward and keep him out of the way, which worked perfectly. So Edward's in the north. He knows Warwick's coming. And so he's relying on his key loyal magnates to rally round and finish Warwick off. Doesn't quite work like that. It's like dominoes. As Warwick goes north, so one after another of these men who are supposed to be loyal to Edward decide to join Warwick's rebellion, to the extent that one key one is Lord Thomas Stanley, who's the largest power in the northwest. He caves in. He decides it's in his interest to do so. And but the most damaging one is John Neville. John Neville, Warwick's brother, who hadn't supported him the previous year, now decides to go over to him. And at such short notice, and he's so close to where Edward is, that Edward's got nothing. He can't do anything about it. He's totally outmaneuvered. Unusual. I can't think of another occasion when that happens to Edward, but certainly it is here. And he has to go. He has to flee, disband his army. He, Gloucester, his brother, and William Hastings, his most loyal magnate and retainer, they go abroad at once. So, Elizabeth Woodville goes into sanctuary in Westminster Abbey. So essentially, the Yorkist regime has collapsed.
And so Henry VI returns to the throne.
Well, I mean, I'd love to have been there. I'd love to have been at the Tower when Warwick turns up and says, "Hey, hi, Henry, you're king again." How? Why?
Isn't there an account that Henry, by this stage, he had to be tied to his horse to stop him falling out of it because he's so
quite feeble, physically feeble,
physically and mentally gone, really. So, yeah. I mean,
how old is he by this stage?
He was born in what, 1422?
So 50 odd.
Yeah, 50.
But I think perhaps the Valois,
he's
the strain of the
50,
Valois,
isn't he? Actually,
mental illness.
Barely 50.
Yeah.
It always seems as if he's about 70, but but he's not. You know.
I think.
Yeah, he's not even 50.
Yeah.
No.
But I think he's cutting a fairly pathetic sight by this point, and it's quite sad that they're dragging him out and using him as a figurehead again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we have we have Edward again. Edward isn't beaten until he's dead, really, basically. He's in Burgundy with his brother-in-law, Charles, Duke of Burgundy, with a handful of supporters. And he starts to prepare in early 1471, he's trying to prepare an invasion. So he gets a bit of support from the Duke of Burgundy, and he raises a couple of thousand men. He's got over 30 ships, and they set off. And like a lot of fleets that set off in this period, he doesn't get there, or at least his fleet doesn't. It's dispersed by a storm. It's like Shakespearean almost, isn't it? The storm comes up and blows the fleet away. So in the end, Edward lands, I love this, he lands at Ravenspur, which is where Henry Bolingbroke landed in 1399. And
is that up in Lincolnshire?
It's the northeast, Humberside sort of area.
Humberside.
And like Bolingbroke, he says, "I've only come to claim my dukedom. I've only come to claim my dukedom of York. Don't want anything else. Not going to be any trouble." And he's got about, I guess he's probably about 500 of his men have probably managed to find their way to him. So he goes to York. He's warned in advance that he's not going to be very popular in York. Contrary to popular belief these days, York was a Lancastrian centre, not a Yorkist one. But so he goes to York and he declares publicly, "I've only come to be restored to my dukedom." Now, critical moment in history. Who takes action against him? Nobody. You've got Henry Percy, Earl of Northumberland, sits on his hands. Thomas Lord Stanley sits on his hands. John Neville sits on his hands. Nobody who has the power to crush. He's only got a few hundred men. He could have been crushed easily, but nobody does, which is an interesting question in itself.
Hello, Ollie here. Please forgive my interruption, but I wanted to let you know that at Aspects of History, we produce a digital magazine featuring articles, interviews, short stories and book reviews of the best historical writing available. Authors featured including Ben Macintyre, Lucy Worsley, Andrew Roberts, and plenty more. An annual subscription is available for only $9.99. That's pounds or dollars. Yep, you heard that right. That's 6 issues for under £10 or dollars. Head over to aspectsofhistory.com to subscribe, where you can also gift subscriptions. Now back to the show. Are they thinking Edward, the son of Henry VI, is because as we've said, Henry VI is 49, 50. David, you mentioned life expectancy. He's not going to live forever. Next in line is Edward, a 17-year-old. Do we know how was Edward was he a particularly promising monarch?
There's one lurid account of him as a child ordering people's heads to be cut off after Second St Albans, I think. But that's like a Yorkist account trying to present him as a little monster. We don't really. I don't think. I mean, Derek will know better, but we don't really know a great deal about Edward. I think he's quite a tragic figure because he probably was. I think he's described as looking quite similar to Edward IV. I mean, they are, sort of blonde, good looking, and he might, given the opportunity, have turned out, to be quite competent, but he never got to do that. There's no reason
to suppose he wouldn't have been. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so I don't think there's anything to indicate that he was his father. That he was as weak and feeble-minded as Henry VI.
The problem was he's not in England. He's still in France, and so if you're a nobleman weighing up your options, well, should we just see what happens? Let's just let this run and see what happens. Maybe Edward has only come for the dukedom, maybe he hasn't. But if you're John Neville, you're thinking, am I going to be the one to put my hand up here and do something? And Henry Percy's thinking exactly the same, and so is Thomas Stanley. They're all thinking, well, let's just see what happens. And of course, what happens is that Edward goes south into the Midlands. He's got William Hastings with him, who raises about 3,000 men in 5 minutes because it's all been prepared in advance. And he gathers support as he goes. And he's basically in the Midlands with not a big army, but a much more than 500 men, several thousand at least. And then it's a problem.
Okay. So yes, it's a problem for who is it a problem
It's
for?
a problem for Warwick.
Oh, I've forgotten about him.
It's easy.
Oh, no, never forget.
Never forget. Well, I have to say, the thing about Warwick is he does come across. I know you mentioned him as in the earlier episode, long time ago, as the Dominic Cummings of the Wars of the Roses. He is sort of fairly effective. He's with some of his machinations, isn't he? It's just when it comes to battle, that's where he fails.
Well, I think you can argue he fails politically as well.
Yeah, I think his judgment is where he fails.
I mean, maybe when you get to this stage, he hasn't got the royal authority. The fact that he's managed to acquire lots of land and power, he's still just the Earl of Warwick. And people like Stanley and Percy would have considered themselves his peers. They're just as good as Warwick. And why should he tell them what to do? And I don't think his reputation is particularly high either. I mean, this is a man who's betrayed everyone around him. So who are you going to bet on? I mean, if I was a lord at the time, I'd be betting on Edward, to be honest, even though he had less men.
The other thing is that Warwick has got this sort of uneasy coalition of people. He's got your die-hard Lancastrians. He's got Clarence.
Right.
So he's a bit of an unknown quantity for sure, because he's gone from being number one choice as new king to being a spare thumb, basically. He's got no part to play in the future at the moment. You've got him. You've got disaffected earls who might think, well, maybe we should go back to Edward. There's a lot of, it's an uneasy situation. And again, I think it's a very good example of the difference between Edward and Warwick. Because what we end up with in 1471 in sort of March, April, is we have Edward with an army in the Midlands and Warwick with an army in the Midlands. Confusingly, Warwick's at Coventry and Edward's at Warwick. But anyway, they've both got an army. Edward's is smaller. and Warwick is trying to get all his ducks in a row. He's trying to get all the other people on his side, the Earl of Oxford and so on. He wants everybody there so that he can absolutely crush Edward. So, and Edward obviously knows that. Meanwhile, in the background, almost the entire Yorkist branch of the Plantagenet family have been working on Clarence and saying, come on, you're a brother of the king. You need to be on our party, in our group. You can't sit there with Warwick, who's a sort of traitor. And so on April the 3rd, there's a meeting between the three brothers, Gloucester, Clarence, and Edward, and Clarence comes back to the fold. And Clarence brings with him thousands of men because he has enormous landholdings. So you go from a situation on the 2nd of April where Edward has a smaller army to a situation on the 3rd of April where the armies are pretty well balanced. And it's a whole different ball game for Warwick. No longer is there the certainty, almost certainty, of being able to crush Edward. Now he's got to try and work out what he's going to do next. So they're facing each other in a way, sort of cat and mouse, sort of in the Midlands. Who's going to blink first? And Edward, being the decisive leader that he is, says, right, we're going to race to London. We're going to go to London. Go to London, we get the resources of London. And we then come back out and deal with it then. So that's what he does. He's sort of, it's like two cats, which one's going to move first? Edward goes and Warwick follows, but he's not quick enough. And Edward gets to London, gets his wife out of sanctuary, who by then has produced a son. So Edward now has a future. He has a successor.
Also called Edward?
Also called Edward. Why would you change it? I mean, it would be far less confusing if you called him Albert or something. So yeah, and then he harnesses resources of London and he marches almost immediately straight back out northwards to confront Warwick. And that is where the Battle of Barnet comes in.
And Barnet is an absolutely huge battle, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty big. Yeah. It's fought in the fog, I think. And I think it's actually the Lancastrians were doing quite well. Oxford, John de Vere, he defeated Lord Hastings' division.
It depends whether you decide that Hastings was on the right or the left, and
yeah,
on the right or left. Whichever was on there, he was pushing back the Yorkist left because the two battle lines weren't opposite each other exactly. Because of the fog, Edward had advanced right close to the Lancastrian lines, but they weren't aligned. So when the right-hand side of the Lancastrian army came forward, it was kind of going round the left-hand side of the Yorkist army, but the same thing was happening on the other flank.
Yeah, it was sort of pinwheeling.
Yeah. So Oxford was very successful.
But then something went badly wrong. I kind of looked quite closely at Barnet from these books I've been writing, but it seems that Oxford's men got confused and charged into the rear of their own allies, into the back of Warwick's division, I think, because the livery badges looked very similar and they got confused in the fog. Basically,
I think it was that, hasn't he got a star or something?
A star and screams.
And it was Edward's son
of York
that they son of York. Yeah. So they were similar in the fog.
I don't think there's any. Sorry.
Also, some of Oxford men had just gone into Barnet thinking they'd won. They were telling everybody they'd won. News reached London that they'd won. They were very confident. They were having a drink, probably. And then it became obvious to Oxford that he hadn't actually. He'd been effective. He turned the line, but he hadn't. The battle was not won at all because on the other side, the whole battle line was swinging round.
I think Exeter, Henry Holland was in charge of the other Lancastrian flank, and he got well beaten. So as Derek said, this sort of battle goes like that. And then some of Oxford's men get terribly confused, charge into the rear of their own allies, and the Lancastrian army kind of dissolves in the fog.
Yeah.
So I think Edward gets lucky at Barnet, but do you want to be a lucky general or a good one?
Absolutely. Yeah, he does get lucky. Yeah,
and poor old Warwick and his brother are killed.
No, they they killed at
Yeah, they're both
Barnet.
killed.
Oh, so they are killed at
Yeah,
Barnet.
they're
You're
both
right.
killed.
Yes, yes. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Because they put their horses at the rear. They do this kind of
Yes.
symbolic act of we're not running
Yes.
away. And Warwick is actually killed trying to get to his horse.
Yeah.
Because he's had cause to regret this decision. It's like, oh, maybe I'll run away after all.
Where did we put those horses?
Yeah.
Whose stupid idea was it to put the horses at the back?
Interestingly, Oxford doesn't seem to have. He kept his horse nearby, and he manages to escape. It's like, yeah, I'm not sticking around.
And what was the manner of Warwick's death when he was set upon? Did his assailants know this was Warwick, and so?
Oh, he'd been wearing his coat armor.
Yeah, I think they would have known. Yeah.
They just pulled him down, and
they wouldn't have captured him and ransomed. They would have.
I think we're way beyond capture at that point, really.
Just I think it's a knife through the visor job.
Yes, something like that. There were quite a few of those. But I mean, Warwick knew he was a dead man anyway. If he was caught, he was a dead man either way, however it turned out.
I see, but it's not the final battle of this sort of section, is it?
No. The ironies of this Wars of the Roses continue to flood on, don't they? On the day of Barnet, when the Lancastrian cause suffers a body blow, Queen Margaret arrives in Weymouth, having finally decided to come to England. And, is she pleased or sorry that Warwick's dead? It's a difficult one. And the other thing is she raises men almost immediately. The southwest must have been heavily populated because they seemed very ready to go to war for King Henry. And she raises a sizable army. I mean, it's not a massive army, but still a lot. And her aim is to go up to Wales, meet up with Jasper Tudor, and then head into the Lancastrian heartland of the north, where she'll pick up more support. That's the plan. Edward basically is too quick for her. He cuts her off at Tewkesbury. She can't cross the bridges, cross the Severn, and he then takes on her army, and it gets destroyed basically.
And tragically, we see the death of Henry VI's son Edward.
Yes.
Yeah, he's
a teenager.
He's either killed in the battle or executed afterwards. But I was going to say the Lancastrian commanders don't help their cause because I think it's Lord Wenlock who he attacks the Yorkist flank at Tewkesbury, and he's expecting, I can't remember his name, but the Lord who's in command of like the centre to come up and support him, but he doesn't, and so his division's defeated, and he turns his horse around, rides back to this other commander, and he brains him with his mace.
Yes, right.
So he kills his own commander. And it's like, okay, that's not helpful. But I'm technically should be a Lancastrian because my dad's from Wigan. But you just look at them sometimes, you think, bunch of Keystone cops. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
Well, because it would help if I could remember the guy's name, but the Lancastrian commander should have brought his men up to support Wenlock's charge, and they might have pushed the Yorkists back, but instead he just sat on a hill and didn't do anything. So Wenlock is defeated, and that's why he goes back and he shouts at him, he sort of cusses at him, and then smashes his brains out. And it's just bumbling ineptitude all over again.
Yeah.
And I think is it after Tewkesbury where Edward decides he's really had enough now, and some Lancastrian knights try and take refuge in Tewkesbury Abbey?
In the Abbey, Tewkesbury
and he breaks the rules of refuge and sanctuary and just kills them.
Yeah.
But to be fair, he's really been pushed quite far by this point.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think there's been extenuating circumstances.
Yeah,
a lot of blood has been spilt though.
Yes.
By 1471.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, especially when you look at the death count among the noble families.
Yeah.
It's really quite gruesome.
Well, this has been incredible. I think this is a good time to stop, isn't it?
It's a good cut-off point.
Derek's given the nod. He's our Edward the Fourth for this episode. So we're going to pause it here, listeners. And so the next episode will be there's a bit of a lull. We'll cover it in the next episode, but then we move to the key period of 1483 on through to the conclusion of the Wars of the Roses in 1485. And probably is the Battle of Bosworth the most famous battle in England? It's up there.
That and Hastings, I suppose.
Battle of Hastings. I
Yeah,
suppose.
up there with Hastings. Yes,
Yeah,
of course,
up there with
Hastings.
Hastings, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's certainly in the top two. Okay. Well, and then he who shall not be named, although I've always rather held a torch for him.
It's not Richard himself I have a problem with. Let's put it like that. But
well, we can discuss it.
I have a lot of problems with a lot of people in that period.
Yeah, I mean, after what we've heard, I mean, there are a lot of other people I got a lot of problems with, but
I think if somebody was to start, an Earl of Warwick society and start claiming that he was this wonderful man who never did anything faintly dubious, people would laugh them out of court.
Have you been to Warwick Castle?
I have. Yes.
They love the Kingmaker there.
Of course.
He's a selling point, but
he said the Warwick Castle marketing department have been leaving me really bad reviews. So
dear.
We will have to.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be, because we're drawing attention to him. We're saying, this is a man who's interesting, whose career should be studied and looked at, and so on.
Yeah, you don't have to like him.
Yeah, you don't have to like him.
Indeed. Well, and then we'll also, of course, have to discuss that thorny issue of the princes in the tower.
Tell you what, let's not.
But we have to. But until then, Derek, author of the Guide to the Wars of the Roses, and David Pilling, author of Kingbreaker, which is a great title. I like the play on the words there. Thanks very much. Until next time.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. Links are in the show notes. Please share with friends and family. And if you want to get in touch, you can through X or email history@aspectsofhistory.com. But until then, thank you and good night.